So too much crotch on the last shot. That's what you're saying, huh?
There was a lot of crotch on last week's episode, and I'd like to officially apologize.
Are we less crotchy?
I don't know. I feel like I can't ever wear shorts again. And even you were not wearing shorts, but there was a lot of crotch for you too.
People are going to go back now and be like, oh, what's going on with all the crotch?
It was not a good look for either one of us.
We're not camera people, all right? I'm not the cameraman.
Listen, you're on the podcast with Dino and Ashley. All right, I have this week's hot take. I've been saving this thing up all week.
You've been just like waiting for it, excited about it.
You know, we had a bit about it the other day. So, listen, I'm talking with this guy, this worker, and in the middle of...
grinds my gears. Is that what this is?
Yeah, this is a grinds my gears. And it just made me think, who's wrong here? I don't know. So... I'm talking with this worker at our business, and in the middle of the conversation, he stops like mid-talking to me, and he takes his vape, and he starts to just vape right in front of me. And I was like, oh, that's weird. And then we're just still talking, and I'm now talking, and he does it again a few minutes later, and he takes another thing out of his vape pen. And I'm like... Is it me? Is my story really that boring right now? That
it is. This guy is.
It's so stressful to you that you have to vape in the middle of me talking. I don't know if this is a me thing or a you thing. Like, do I have the problem or do you? And I really need to rethink the way I tell stories now, and then I communicate to people. If I'm having a conversation with somebody and in the middle of it, they're like, I got to take a hit.
Hold on, this is too much. A lot right now.
I was like, shoot.
So it's not the vaping that's necessarily wrong. It's just like, is it an indicator of you and the quality of what you're saying?
Yeah, I think that I was failing as a communicator.
You're such a ham. Okay. You are.
Well, that's my hot take. I don't even know what the take was or the hotness, but I just was like, what's happening here? What do I need to go back and relearn?
This is the society we live in at this point, all right? Just randomly can't handle not vaping right in front of another human being for like 2 minutes.
I know.
So yeah, it's been a good week. Yeah. I think it's been
yeah. Yeah,
we got some fun things going on in general.
We got meat in our lives right now.
Yeah.
There's some richness and a lot of growth and a lot of hard stuff.
Yeah, we were joking last night with some friends of ours at dinner that it was like we went through hurricane to hurricane cleanup. Well, it was literal hurricane with literal hurricane cleanup to like personal hurricane and now personal cleanup. So it's just life just continues to throw random things at us, and we get to figure it out. It is a blessing. It's great. It's great. You know, we keep saying there's a 100% chance that God has us going through all of this stuff just so that at some point later in life we'll be thoroughly equipped to be able to handle more things like this or be there for someone else. Or
yeah, it's like everything everywhere all at once. Everything's hitting, and just when you feel like another thing couldn't hit in another area, it hit. And that was kind of this week for us. It was just like, okay, all right, let's go. And I just can't help but feeling that if God hadn't put it in front of me and prompted me to really reading his word right now, instead of reading a book like I usually do, but really, really diving in this year to his word, that I would have just crumbled multiple times every time there was news, of something else. And so to have his word to go back to, and now to have that as that knowledge, and that it's like this bank in the back of my mind of like, okay, well, this is who God is. This is happening in the world, but this is who God is. And this is how we're to respond.
And this is how I'm to see this thing.
It's definitely helping.
Yeah, it's no fun, obviously, on that we can't share all the specifics of all the things we go through in life, but it's kind of irrelevant. The important part is that hopefully you can commiserate with us in knowing that we go through some harder times. I'm sure that people go through hard times that listen to the podcast, just difficult situations, whether it's stuff that they're dealing with, the ministry they're involved with, or family stuff, or work stuff, or kid stuff. There's always going to be something. It just so happens that all of it is our stuff right now. Sue's actually one of our friends, Susan. She said something to me, and when we were kind of unpacking aspects of this with them, we have good friends that are very good.
They know, they've heard of them.
Yeah, we have good friends that are good counsel. So we go to them for good counsel on things that we go through. And I was like, how are you dealing with this? And this is not like affecting your daily life. And she basically was like, I compartmentalized. That was the quick way of saying this. Sue said, while going through a harder time, that thing that is difficult has no real critical aspect in my life. Meaning my family, my husband, wife situation, my kid situation, my health, those critical aspects of my life are great. So this thing that I'm dealing with is a secondary or tertiary or non-primary issue. I'm not going to allow that thing to affect the joy in the rest of my life that is critical. Yeah. The critical aspects of my life are amazing. Therefore, I should just be joyful.
It's a distraction.
It's a distraction. And I can go deal with that thing. I'm at home dealing with my home things. I have to leave home, deal with some things that are not my home things. And then when that's done, I can come home and be back in my home scenario. That does not impact this.
Yeah. Yeah. So yesterday I was having a hard day and the things from the outside were overflowing to our lives. And I was just having a hard time of separating what is going on and not having it affect life and who I am, But Dino was so good and just reminding me of that sort of same thing that he was just talking about, and that those things don't need to overflow into our lives, and that look at what God's doing here right now. Look at it within our marriage, within our family, and let's focus on those things, the things that he's doing right now and where he wants us to keep our eyes. And those things, yes, we'll deal with them, but they don't need to change who we are and how we live our life.
Yeah.
And so that was really helpful for me. When you're in that thickness of feeling overwhelmed, you can a lot of times be outside of yourself almost and be like, I want to feel like this, but I don't know how to feel like this. And I just keep going back to the verse from this week that we read. That was Isaiah 26:3, I think. And it said, you're kept in perfect peace, those whose eyes or mind are stayed on the Lord.
Yeah.
In order for us to not be fixated on the things of this world and the things that are distracting us, and to have that perfect peace, we have to keep our eyes fixated on him and not the things going on around us. And that means that keeping our thoughts captive, because our mind will take us down a slippery slope of, just dwelling on the bad and dwelling on the hard.
Yep.
And so I've been trying to just, even when I want to go, my mind wants to go and get stressed out or go get wrapped up in the chaos. I'm like, okay, but what does God's word say? Who is he? What is the truth here? And keeping my eyes stayed upon the Lord. I highly recommend looking at that verse and reading the commentary on it.
So this was really fun because you saw the hard things that you and I were going through that lens. And at the same time, you and I have been doing Bible reading together. And I had gone through Matthew the day that we had this thing that we were dealing with. And the Bible verse was around, I think it was Peter. I'll probably mess that up. Peter steps out of the boat and walks towards Christ on water. And he's walking on water. And then at a certain point, he stops having his eyes on Christ and then started to freak out because he saw all of the awful, crazy things that were going on around him, and then started to fall, and Christ catches him, right? It's the same.
Oh, ye of little faith.
It's the same. Yeah, but it's the same thing. There is a reality that we can live in that allows us to walk on water and remove all of the distraction around us and walk towards Christ with our eyes fixated on Christ. And that reality, there is no storm. There's no storm for Peter when he first steps out. He doesn't even see it. He just sees Christ and the fact that he can walk on water. And that is the entirety of his reality. But then he stopped being intentional about focusing on God and the worry of the world and the worry of the things that are around him, and his senses were the things that he started to focus on, then everything else fell apart.
Yeah. And that's like where Satan knows, he uses that fear and he's like, gotcha. Yeah, look at that and look over there and look over there.
Yeah.
Anything to take our eyes off of the
It's going
Lord.
to get you. You should be fearful of this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You can't walk on water.
Yeah, you can't. What are you doing? This is impossible. If we have the right perspective, we can live in a reality that is completely different.
Yeah. Well, I think even just that right there, what happened yesterday, Dino had a buddy ask him yesterday actually and was like, hey, so what does, arguing look like for you guys? Are you still arguing now? You guys have been married 18. I mean, let's just say we're in the 19. We're in the 19th year. We're saying 19 almost. Okay. He's like, you guys have been married for so long. And, was like, yeah, arguing does look different for us now. We have had, this whole week has been filled with conversations now,
You have to finger quote it.
Conversation.
Does that mean it's still like kind of
We're
an
still
argument?
yelling. There's still things being thrown, but we call them conversations. That's the difference. No, I'm just kidding. No, they are different because we are. You said it perfectly. And as you were explaining this to me, I was saying it in my head the same exact way. They are conversations because the goal now is to try to understand the other person. And that's the heart posture.
Yeah. So to give full color to this, in the harder things that Ash and I have going on in life right now, her and I are trying to figure out how to have the correct perspective and then ultimately the correct
response.
The right response on how do we then handle this thing. And the last thing I want to do is tell her, this is what we're going to do. Get behind me. Let's go. That is not my style of doing things. I want to be where, hey, let's figure this out. Let's get aligned on this. And once we're aligned, then we're on the same team and we both are bought in and we can go and attack this together. That's always my preference. The last thing I ever want to do is just say, I know what we're doing here. We're going this direction. Boom, let's come on. I want to be on the same page with you. So that has meant you and I have had a lot of conversations. A lot of these are semantics, but ultimately the semantics and what I'm saying here are important because they shift your perspective of how you're talking, conversing, debating, arguing, whatever you want to say with your spouse. Because the intent has always been, hey, I really want to be on the same page as you. I don't want to win this. I want you and I to either, I say convince, but it's not the right word.
Understand.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. I need you to help me to understand so that my brain can be bought into your perspective, or I need to be able to articulate to you my perspective in a way that makes it so that you can see things in the way that I'm seeing them.
Yeah.
And the way that I was using, the analogy that I was using while you and I were going back and forth yesterday was we're in two different spots in a room looking at the same thing, and we both can see it clearly, but we're trying to convince the other person of what we're seeing,
Yeah.
And we could just sit there and yell at each other and say, I see this, and you say, I see this, and we're both right. But at the end of the day, that's not helpful. We're really trying to help the other person say, oh, what is it that you see over there? And it's just that shift of...
It's a game changer.
Help me to see what I don't see over there, and I'll help you to see what's over here.
I'm sure it's pissing Satan off so much because everything that we're going through right now would be so easy for Dino and I to separate and to be at war with each other and be each other's enemies through this. Well, you're not understanding how I'm feeling. Those feelings are there, but that's not how we're responding to them.
Yeah.
I want to understand you.
Yeah.
And I want you to understand me. So I have to go in with the intent of, okay, I need to figure out what I'm even trying to say.
Yep.
And what am I even feeling? And sometimes that takes me a minute.
Yep. And I have to do the same thing. I have to try and be from the perspective of what is it she's trying to actually say? Is the word she's saying actually how she feels, or is there something different? And it's a lot of me asking questions to you with the intent of really trying to understand you. And Jordan Peterson even says one of his rules for life is listen as if the person has something to teach you. And that means intentfully listening, really trying to understand that
That's what I was
person.
just going to say. That's the response, is to listen with the intent to understand and not to get upset or irritated that it isn't the same thing that you think, or that it could offend you somehow because it's a different opinion than yours, to not take personal offense, because the goal is to have vulnerability, open up so we can communicate with one another, understand each other, and then figure out a path forward.
Yeah. And even going back to stuff we were talking about last week or the week before on meekness, if you have a meek mentality in things, it makes this about 1,000,000 times easier. Because I'm going into it with the assumption, okay, I don't have all the answers on this. But when you go into a conflict or a conversation around trying to get unity and get alignment on things, and you have the attitude of, I know I'm right, I need to inform her of why she is wrong, that is not fruitful. That's not meek. Meekness basically states that I'm not sure about how it is that I feel about this, and I don't know. And my wife might actually have some perspective and knowledge or wisdom in this or discernment that I don't see. Therefore, I really want to hear what she has to say, and I want to try and understand her.
Yeah, it reminds me of what I was reading today in the commentary in Romans, and it said, if you really understood how wrecked we are as a person, there would be no room for pride in your life. And it's just, so that takes us back to like how important it is to know who God is, read his word, so that we can have the right heart posture even in our conversations with one another. Like, I want to come to the table empty and not thinking that I have all the answers and that I know everything. I want to come before God that way, and I want to come before you that way when we have a conversation.
Yeah. It's been very enjoyable to try and learn you in a different way. Part of it too is trying to read between the lines. There's a lot of times I can see the way you're thinking and I can hear what you're saying, and I'm like, wait a minute, these things, there's a misalignment here. She's not actually saying what she really feels. So I'm going to continue to try and unpack this with her to get to the root of how you really feel on something. And sometimes, and we do this to each other, we'll say things that aren't actually true because we're guarding ourselves or something like that, And a lot of times I'll say to you, hey, well, hold on. You're saying, oh, I'm not hurt, but you are hurt. Like, let's be honest in this, together, so we can continue to progress forward. And just having that ability to be vulnerable with one another and trust one another and be able to hear one another. It's 19 years of work to get to that point, but man, it's really fruitful right now.
It is. And you're right. You have to have those things to be able to speak honestly. You have to have trust. You have to be able to be vulnerable with one another. And because I can't communicate to you that I feel hurt by something if you're going to just rub it in my face afterwards. You'll be like, well, why do you feel hurt? Yeah. Or you're going to take it and use it against me. So it's so dangerous to do. And it's like those things stick with us for a very long, long time. So if those things are patterns in your life or in your marriage, stop that right now. Go before the Lord and repent and change those ways, and go before your spouse and say, let's not do this anymore. I don't want to go forward this way.
Yeah,
this is not
a pattern
the
that
winning
I've created.
path.
Yeah, there's a pattern I've seen. I no longer want to do this. Let's do something different. Because I feel like even you and I, we get in ruts sometimes of how we're communicating, and we have to acknowledge aspects of how we're communicating is really not good and healthy, or there's baggage we're bringing into things, and we have to acknowledge the fact that I don't want to do that anymore. Basically, I'm going to fight fair with you.
Yeah.
I want to go into this with the good intent and not trying to win.
And going off of yesterday's thing, I just want to also say that what was really cool that you did, you gave me the time to be my hype person almost, where you were trying to help me out of what I was feeling. Let's not live life like this. Let's live life like this. Let's put that stuff over here and see it for what it is, and look at all the things that God's doing. And, you were like, encouraging and trying to like hype me up almost, because you wanted me to come alongside you in how you were feeling. And it was right. And I think that in times past, you would take a personal offense to me being down or something. And you would try for a second to communicate to me, try to hype me up and encourage me.
So full context on this, hard things are going on. I'm dealing with a little bit better. You're struggling with it. And you're allowing that the non-primary issue in our life, something that's
to overflow into how I was feeling. And it was making me down.
Taking over the day.
Yeah.
Right?
It was stealing my joy for sure. And instead of abandoning me in that, or at least trying for a second and then abandoning me, where you have tried to come alongside me, tried to help me. And then we're not in it alone. You're going through the same thing. And then you have, and I have done the same thing too. You have taken a personal offense to it. And you're like, if you're going to not change your attitude, then I'm going to come down to this level also. It's almost like a threat. Like, you need to change your attitude or I'm going to come down here also. And then we're both going to be in this rut. And that is so ugly and gross. So we've both done that to each other.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And yesterday you didn't. You kept encouraging and I was like, yeah, I don't want to be like that.
Yeah.
Let's go. I want to change, And then the whole day changed. And then I came home and I wrote a whole bunch of stuff, and you overflowed. So what you stood strong in and were obedient in, not only did you change my attitude and my heart, but then it's so cool to see now what I wrote yesterday, how that's going to overflow into all the hundreds of people that read my From Ashley. So good job, Daddy.
Oh, thanks, Mama.
Yeah. But that's just so important to not play the victim in that role either, because it's really easy to get discouraged when your spouse is discouraged and you're trying to get them to be brought up. You can also be pulled down with them. Continue to be that anchor, because there's, like we've said before, there's going to be times when you need to be strong for the other person, and then when they need to be strong for you, and just to be aware of those things. Yeah.
Yesterday, you and I needed to get aligned. I felt like I had the right perspective and I wanted to understand your perspective. So I first started a good chunk of the conversation with, help me to understand where you're at and what's going on, just so that I could see where you were at. And then I was very intentional about not giving you a solution, right? I'm not trying to solve.
Don't tell me what to do.
Telling a girl or telling a guy, I guess it doesn't. Oh, you were like, you're going to do it. Oh.
Women.
No. So instead,
do you like it if I tell you your problems?
No, don't tell me how to solve my problems.
I'm good. Telling a boy too. Like I called you
boy.
You called me a girl, not a woman.
What?
Not the wife of your youth of 19 years.
All right. Anyways,
Zach, keep that.
It was more about help me to understand where you're at and what's going on. Allow me to just have a small amount of space to share with you my perspective on this. I see things this way, you see it this way. Again, we're in a room looking at an object, two totally different angles. And yesterday, you just had a blind spot on what was going on. So it wasn't a matter of personal offense to me. It was, hey, the two that are one, my wife, my flesh of my flesh, is struggling right now to see something. That was my perspective. And I just wanted to come alongside you and either help me see things so that I need to kind of be upset about this, or I want to be as, distraught about it, or see it over here and let's get on the same page that this isn't a primary issue in our life. Therefore, we should be goofing around and having a great day today because we're happy and healthy and strong and everything's going generally well in the rest of our lives. So forget this.
I actually feel like this could just change marriages if we had this perspective all the time.
I wish I did all the time. If I'm being honest, that was God just giving me some extra capacity or capability yesterday. I can't take credit. It's not my normal tendency. I'm normally the one who spirals. That's my job in this relationship, okay? It's not your job. I'm the spiraler.
No, that's good. So we've talked about, coming alongside each other and, helping each other when one person is feeling a certain way. But just talking about being in alignment with each other when we disagree on a path forward. Typically, you and I are pretty aligned and we can get on the same page quickly. Yeah. because I would hope that we both have a heart and a desire to, be obedient to what God wants us to do.
Yeah, we're aligned on our priorities and where our truth comes from. Therefore, it's much easier in general to be aligned on things.
Yes. This week in particular has been harder because I don't feel like God has given me a clear direction on the path forward on one of these things, and you don't either. So at the beginning of this, you said, I don't want to like try to convince you to come my way. If Dino felt the Lord's telling me that this is the right way, then I 100% would, and I told you this, would submit and do that way.
If I said, hey, I need you to back me up right now.
Yeah.
We disagree on this. I just need you to have my back on. I'm going to make a call.
Yes, but you have not done that. You don't feel strongly in putting your way as the way, that God's telling you to do that. You don't have the direction either from the Lord. So we're just now trying to figure out, okay, well, Lord, give us that alignment. We want to be aligned on how to move forward in this. And instead of it, I'm thankful because normally this would be something that would divide us too. This is so easy. If we can't decide on a path forward, this is so easy for us to be divided. But instead, we are thankfully going forward and seeking after the Lord. Okay, Lord, what do you want? Either, whatever I'm feeling, if you want me to align with Dino on this, then just strip me away of everything that I'm feeling and give me that same alignment, or just at least pull us into the same alignment together. It's
my absolute nightmare of a scenario that I would be like, hey, you have to back me up on this. We can't get figured out. You're just going to come and do what I say on this.
There have been times though, like maybe a handful of times in our marriage where you have said like, hey, this is what I feel like God's telling us to do. We're going to do that. And I'm like, all right, let's go.
Yeah. It's the effective equivalent of me setting out on a journey with an extra 500-pound backpack on me. It's burdensome to have you and I not on the same page moving forward. And yes, you're very good the majority of the time about putting those things away, but I don't want to have to put that on you. I would rather say, hey, if we can't figure it out right this second, and there's no urgency, we don't have to make a call right now, let's just wait on the Lord then.
Yeah.
And let's pray that God would put your and my heart into alignment so we're on the same page so that we can say, yeah, I feel good about doing it this way because I don't want to go and do it my way. I would rather try and understand why it is that you see things a certain way so we can make an adjustment, or I can understand why something makes you feel uncomfortable doing it this way and we'll do it a different way,
Yeah.
The main thing I think that you and I are trying to say when it comes to marriage is have the mentality of trying to understand your spouse. And if you look at your marriage with the intent of, this is the flesh of my flesh, the two are one, I need to have my house not divided when making forward progress on things. I really want to make sure we're on the same page so we can attack side by side instead of her behind me or her fighting in another direction or not being bought into what we're going and fighting together. I want to be strong with you. And I want to create an environment in our house where you and I are strong together when we're attacking things. Think about it from this perspective. There's an outside war, and you and I internally are at war trying to decide how to fight an outside war. No, think about how silly that is. We're divided on how to fight an external thing. Like, whoa, pump brakes for a sec. Get on the same page and do it with the intent of understanding, not with convincing. That lesson is one that I need to constantly remind myself of because it is always my natural tendency to just say, I got this figured out. I'm very good at strategy. I'm good at understanding how to handle these things. Just get behind me and back me up. And we're doing this. That is not the right mentality. This is my girl. I want her to have my back. And that's my boo. You just got to come in with the comedic relief, don't you? You're funny. That's my boo. I'm going to go to war with my boo. You're such a ham.
I didn't say it like that.
All right, wrap it up.
We're going to go to war together.
Yeah.
Let's be in the battlefield together.
Yeah, same page.
Yes. On a path with the Lord, seeking after him, then it takes away all the stress. It gives us the perfect peace. Shalom, shalom. You read that in my thing.
You've been crushing it lately on your From Ashley's. In closing, couple things that you can do to help support the podcast is to like us. Like if you're on one of the platforms,
Hey guys, like and subscribe.
Please subscribe. We've never asked anybody to do that, but it's actually incredibly helpful for this podcast to get in the hands of other people that actually really need it. And it's been really freaking cool. We started this thing 6 months ago, and we were apprehensive at first on it and it's how effective it was going to be. But man, we keep getting more and more and more people that are telling us that their marriages are heavily impacted by this. If you want to see friends and family potentially or strangers get impacted by this podcast, if you like and subscribe, it is helpful for other people to be able to get access to it too. So please help us do that. Also, from Ashley's are really, really great. I read Ashley's yesterday and it was very convicting. It was the one that's going to be dropped here this week or next week.
Yeah.
You can go to from Ashley.
It's on my Instagram in one of my tabs under Arrows and Bow right there from Ashley.
It's a weekly devotional effectively from Ash, and it's much more intimate than the general kind of conversation she has.
I'm a much better writer of my thoughts than a communicator out loud.
We all have our strengths.
Yeah, no, but it's good. I needed yesterday so badly. I needed to be able to take everything that was going on in what I'm reading in the Word right now, what I'm feeling in the world right now that's going on all around us, and just put it all together. And it was very, very helpful. And actually see too what God's doing through His Word and what I'm reading, and how to apply it to the problems we're in. And it kind of blew my mind. It's
such a blessing that we get to be in the position we're at. We have hard things going on, but then we have inlets that God had already prepared for us where you and I need to be reading our Bible a lot with intent and not just reading our Bible together, but being like aggressive about the depth that we're getting out of it. I know we keep saying this on the podcast, but I cannot encourage you guys enough to be reading the Word. And all the women that are coming to the Bible study right now that we're doing the study with, they're all saying the same exact thing. I have never felt more intensity from reading the Word than I am right now. How difficult life is right now, but how it's grounding them and giving them this peace that only they could get through that. I'm just really enjoying it. So whether you do it with this book that we said, it's just like giving you certain chapters to go through. But I really feel like it's one of the most impactful ways I've read it. And Dino's doing it too. Yeah, I like it better than I've done Bible in a year. And this one's by far my favorite so far.
People.
There's nothing fancy about it.
No, it's just so simple, and it's not even a ton. It's just however much you want to pour into it, and that's the crazy thing is that everybody that's doing it too. It's like we can't get enough. I want to read more. I want to give myself time to have enough time to read it, to read the commentary, to talk about it, I get excited to read my Bible. I've never felt that way before.
Yeah. But yeah, what I was getting at is what a blessing that God had us prepared by saying you're going to get into the Word heavily this year, and at the same time hard things going on, and at the same time our ability to have to take all these things that are going on, see it through the lens of God's Word, that He's actively showing us how to deal with these harder things, and then to also have the podcast for us to be able to go on and have as a therapy session with one another, and to just give God glory in the fact that He's doing all this amazing stuff in our lives, even through the hardship. And then there's an amazing plan through it all. I really hope that you guys can see that if you follow a similar path, things go really, really well for you. You prioritize Christ in your marriage, prioritize Christ in your life. The hard things become a matter of perspective. And the chaos can be all around you. You can be in the storm, and you can still then go out and walk on water and look at Christ in the eyes and not see the storm anymore.
Yeah, keep that focus.
All right, go get aligned with your spouse this week.
And that book that I was talking about is on Amazon. We're also going to carry it at the Mercantile soon. But it is called A Beautiful Year in the Bible. It looks like a girly book. It's not for women. It's for anybody. Yeah. I think it even says a women's Bible study, but it's just because it has flowers on it. It's not a women's study. There's nothing in it that's geared just specifically towards women. So yeah, very cool.
Yep.
Okay, we'll see you next week.
All right.